Hades, the god of the underworld, ruled over the land of the dead. Unlike his brothers, Zeus, the ruler of the sky, and Poseidon, the god of the sea, Hades had no shining palace. His kingdom was dark and silent, filled with wandering souls. Though powerful, he was often alone, feared by both mortals and gods. One day, Hades saw Persephone, the beautiful daughter of Demeter, the goddess of harvest. She laughed among the flowers, her golden hair shining in the sun. Hades had never seen such beauty before. His heart, which had been cold for so long, suddenly longed for her. But there was a problem. Persephone lived in the world above, under the watchful eye of her mother. Demeter loved her deeply and would never let her leave. Hades knew he could not simply ask for Persephone's hand. The other gods feared him, and Demeter would never agree. So he made a bold decision, one that would change the world forever. One warm afternoon, Persephone wandered far from her mother, picking flowers in a quiet meadow. As she reached for a beautiful narcissus flower, the earth beneath her feet suddenly shook. A great crack split the ground open, and from the darkness below, Hades emerged in his black chariot, drawn by mighty shadowy horses. Before Persephone could scream, Hades gently took her by the hand and pulled her into his chariot. The ground closed behind them, swallowing the meadow in silence. Persephone was frightened, but Hades spoke softly, telling her he meant no harm. He had taken her to the underworld to be his queen, to rule beside him in a kingdom of shadows. Meanwhile, Demeter searched desperately for her daughter. She called her name across fields and forests, but Persephone was nowhere to be found. As days turned into weeks, her sorrow grew. Crops withered, rivers dried up, and the earth became cold and barren. Without Persephone, the world above began to die. Deep beneath the earth, Persephone arrived at Hades' palace, a magnificent place made of black stone and glowing gems. It was unlike anything she had ever seen, eerie, yet strangely beautiful. Hades did everything to make her comfortable. He gave her the finest clothes, a throne beside his own, and the respect of the underworld's spirits. But Persephone was still sad. She missed the sun, the fresh air, and most of all, her mother. Seeing her sorrow, Hades tried to comfort her. He showed her the peaceful souls in the Elysian fields, where the good rested in happiness. He introduced her to Charon, the boatman who guided spirits across the river Styx, and Cerberus, the three-headed dog who guarded the gates. Slowly, Persephone began to understand the underworld and its purpose. Yet in the world above, things were growing worse. Demeter, in her grief, refused to let anything grow. Zeus, seeing the suffering of mortals, knew something had to be done. He sent Hermes, the swift messenger, to bring Persephone back. Hermes arrived in the underworld, delivering Zeus's command. Persephone must return to her mother. Hades, though heartbroken, agreed. But before she left, he offered Persephone a farewell gift, a small, ruby-red pomegranate. Without thinking, Persephone ate 6 seeds. She did not know that eating food from the underworld bound her to it forever. When Hermes saw this, he grew worried. He knew this meant Persephone could not fully leave. When Persephone was finally reunited with Demeter, the goddess was overjoyed. As her daughter ran into her arms, the world came back to life. Flowers bloomed, rivers flowed, and warm winds swept across the land. But their happiness did not last. When Zeus learned that Persephone had eaten the pomegranate seeds, he declared that she could not stay in the mortal world forever. Because she had eaten 6 seeds, she must spend 6 months of the year in the underworld with Hades, and 6 months above with her mother. This decision would change the world forever. When Persephone stayed with Demeter, the world was full of warmth and life. Flowers blossomed, trees bore fruit, and the fields were golden with wheat. But when it was time for Persephone to return to Hades, Demeter mourned. The land grew cold, leaves fell, and snow covered the earth. This cycle became the reason for the seasons. When Persephone was with her mother, it was spring and summer, warm and full of life. When she returned to the underworld, autumn and winter followed, as Demeter grieved her absence. Though it was hard for them to part, Persephone had grown. She was no longer just Demeter's daughter. She was also the queen of the underworld, wise and strong. Each time she returned to Hades, she ruled with kindness, guiding souls and bringing order to the underworld. And so, Persephone's journey between the two worlds continued, bringing life, death, and rebirth to the world above. At first, Persephone had been taken against her will, but over time, something changed. Hades, unlike many of the other gods, was loyal and devoted to her. He never betrayed her, never sought another queen, and always treated her as an equal. Persephone, too, grew to see Hades differently. He was not just the ruler of the dead. He was fair, just, and cared for the souls in his realm. While other gods fought and betrayed, Hades remained constant. Over time, Persephone no longer saw herself as a prisoner, but as a queen. She ruled beside Hades, bringing mercy to the dead and ensuring justice was served. Though she still missed her mother, she also found happiness in her new home. Their love, though strange at first, became one of the strongest in mythology, a bond that lasted through eternity. As queen of the underworld, Persephone became more than just Hades' wife. She became a powerful goddess in her own right. She welcomed the souls of the dead, comforting those who had lived good lives and guiding those who had suffered. She also ensured that the wicked were punished, sending them to Tartarus, the deepest part of the underworld. Her presence changed the land of the dead. No longer was it only a place of darkness. It also became a place of renewal. Persephone taught that death was not just an end, but part of the cycle of life. She was no longer just the daughter of Demeter. She was Persephone, queen of the underworld. Though Persephone spent half her time in the underworld, she was never truly separated from the world above. With each return to her mother, she brought the promise of spring. And with each departure, she reminded the world that even in darkness, there is always hope. Hades, once feared and lonely, had found his queen. Though their love began with shadows, it endured through time. And so, every year, when the seasons change, we remember their story, the tale of Hades and Persephone, a love that shaped the very world